Hey, sup, pups? What's going on? Welcome to another episode of the.
Pups. That's so cute.
Yep, I always used to say that with my friends, like, sup, pup? What's going on? And all that stuff. But welcome to another episode of the Power Up Podcast, a podcast that masquerades itself as something that could be highly informable with a bunch of information and stuff like that, but really just a cheap excuse to hang out with people and nerd out and talk about a bunch of stuff. But in all seriousness, it is a show to where Nick said it best, and that's something I've always was thinking about too. The sake of being entertained for entertainment's sake, I think, is personally dying. A lot of infestation has creeped up inside of it, and there's always seems to be some sort of ideology being shoved down your throat, and you just can't have a good time remembering stuff from the past, present, and possibly the future as well. So I'm just stepping my foot in to also comment on the bullshit because I am not afraid to speak out. And I mean, I'll even go as far as say it's pure up demonic. But with
Yeah.
oh yeah, but with that, we have an awesome guest with us tonight, Chrissie Mayr. Chrissie, thank
Who
you.
let the pups out? All right. Sorry. I've cringed
No,
so
that's all
hard
right.
at
Were
the
you well, what year were you born? Are you
That's so personal, Greg.
ah, what can I say? I didn't ask you your age. I just said what year.
I'll say the 80s.
The 80s? Same here, 88. But that's why I was wondering, just because, who let the dogs out? That was a 90s kicker.
Oh
Was it
yeah.
90s? I don't know. I'm pretty bad. Hey, Chaos and Baldo. Oh my gosh. Nick gets made fun of his nose. I get made fun of because I'm balding, apparently.
Oh my
So
god. Y'all gotta lighten up. Like, especially when it's something you don't have control over.
very true. And that actually that I do want to ask. Because there was someone on Blaine's Escape Corner, and I was like, hey, a fellow ginger, and he's like, I'm not actually a redhead. And I was like,
Oh
the fuck?
no.
Because we're a dying breed and we're being super oppressed, especially in the Hollywood area. Are
Yeah.
you
Being ginger washed for sure. And I hate to inform you this, but I too am not a real ginger. I
no?
am also chemically enhanced. So yeah, sorry to
Let
break
me
it to
just
you.
take a big old swig of whiskey.
But I support, like, I'm a ginger ally for sure.
Good. Well, I
Like,
appreciate
I
it. Thank
fly
you.
the ginger flag outside my house,
Sweet.
ginger lives
Awesome.
matter.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate it, even though, I mean, I don't know any other gingers around anymore. So we're all dying. We're all dying. Chaos Smash says, Chrissy, be careful. Greg's baldness is infectious. Have plenty of Rogaine on your person in a hazmat suit.
Guys are
My,
brutal.
I know. I I don't even know. What did I do to deserve this? I have no idea.
You're too nice is what. They take advantage of your kindness.
Very true. But oh man, should have heard me when I was raving about YouTube being a bunch of fucking assholes. I wasn't nice then. I
YouTube
wasn't.
is.
I wasn't a good Christian lad during that time.
They are a bunch of a-holes. Like, they really I swear, and there's waves of, things
Hmm.
that they are cracking down about, like, sometimes, like, there'll be a wave of, like, we're cracking down on any trans stuff. Like, you
Hmm.
can get hit for even playing, playing a recording that says something, because even if it's just the words that come up, they don't care. It doesn't even matter if you yourself say it or it's a recording. If it comes up, if it trips the AI, like, they don't care. It's really wild.
Yeah, I mean, my incident was I was trying to be responsible, and separate a business email and a personal email because it's like, who doesn't want to try to at least be organized? I'm not the most
Yeah.
organized person, but heaven forbid I try to take the next step in, making better content and all that stuff. And then in a short story is I'm stuck in limbo to where I have to wait 32 days to either reconnect my working AdSense one or try to reconnect the new AdSense account that keeps getting rejected. Oh, and what
Oh.
they don't tell you is that their policy is you can't have duplicate accounts. That's hidden way, way like
Oh.
deep within stuff. Like
I
I had to
want you to not read it.
like I had to literally pull out like teeth from the chat support to like fucking tell me what to do because I took screenshots and like saved all the conversations and stuff, but their policy straight up says we don't have to tell you the reason why. And it's like, well, how am I supposed to fix it? You
Yeah,
fuckers?
exactly. How are you not supposed to make the same mistake again? It's like they don't care. They just want you to like cower in fear and self-censor.
That's exactly what I was telling them too. Cause I'm like, from what you guys have told me, you have to demonetize yourself with the hopes that your new account will get accepted and then you can link it. That's
Yeah,
fucking retarded.
it is.
But we're not here to talk about me and my my terrible times with YouTube chat support, to which I've been spamming them like for 32 days. I said, if you're going to lock me out for 32 days, I'm going to demand that you
32 days?
Luckily, it's this Friday will be the 32nd day, which I didn't know it went by so fast, but because this happened back in February and I've been trying to fight it ever since, but whatever.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm like a fucking month to transfer. Why? Security reasons. My account's already
That makes
verified.
no sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes no sense. But Chrissy, how's it going? How are you?
It's going good. I'm doing good. I'm really excited for spring. I was in New York City today. Usually I just go in on Mondays, but I went in today because it was my friend Gino's 1000th episode of his podcast on Compound Media.
Nice.
So, my God, just a human zoo, if you can imagine. Like, we polished off an entire, and I don't drink whiskey. Like, they were handing me shots, and I was just like, oh, I had like 2 small
I've got
ones.
some.
But like a full size Jameson, we polished off inside of an hour and a half or something like that.
Oh
It was just
gosh.
wild. And I guess there's probably about like 20 of us hanging out. They're all such drinkers. It was fun. And I went and bought a bunch of decorations and kind of like decorated the studio. And yeah, it was really fun. But man, like it's so
Mhm.
easy to become an alcoholic around the fans. 'Cause they're just like, I mean, it's a good problem to have. Like, oh, people want to buy me drinks. It's so hard.
Hey, you got to do what you
Yeah,
got to do.
but it
I'm
was really
liking,
fun.
yeah. Is what you have set up currently kind of what
Yes, this is
you're
brand
fixing?
new. One of my mods sent this to me. Shout out to NVIDIA.
That's
It's super light.
awesome.
It's like just maybe 2 pounds, and we just drilled some holes into the wall, and I love it. It's so great, and it doesn't change color, but I picked it in this blue because that's like my theme color, and I can change my other lights, so that's good.
Nice.
Yeah, I got some foamy things.
I was
I've
gonna ask,
got
yeah. I
my
wanted to make sure that it was a blue color, and because I know sometimes people have color balance and stuff like that. So that is,
yeah,
yeah.
well, these are like blue and black, and then the lights I can change
Oh,
to
nice.
be other colors. Well, until the remotes don't work.
Oh, geez.
It's fun. Yeah,
Oh, there
bunch
you
of
go.
red. Mixing it up. Ow. Yeah, it's the little things. Oh, wow, now it looks like we're in hell.
I mean, with the way the world's going,
I know, right?
who wouldn't? Yeah, I really
It's
love that blue. Yeah, I rock a blue and gray theme sort of thing. I wanted to rock full gray to give my tribute to Andrew WK, but I figured mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's fun to mix it up.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I've noticed you're just killing it. It looks like in the stand up, and that's amazing. And we've got all of Chrissy's information in the description below, so you can go check out.
I got a
Her.
bunch of shows coming up. If you're in the Connecticut area, I'm going to be in Bridgeport at the Stress Factory this Thursday. Wow, that's in 2 days. And if you're in New York City, we got 2 shows on Saturday, 8 and 10 o'clock at the Grizzly Pear Midtown. If you're a Compound Media fan, Gino Bisconti will be hosting. And then we got Keanu Thompson and Andrew Harms doing spots as well. Then I'll be in Staten Island, Jersey, Vegas, Dallas, Houston, Richmond, Virginia, kind of throughout the spring and summer. So go to my website, ChrissieMayr.com for tickets. And if you live somewhere and you're like, hey, you haven't been to where I live, just tag whatever comedy club that you know and like, or that's close by, and tag me, and just, like harass these people in a friendly way, because I don't have an agent or a manager. So it's any gigs I get, it's just from me like pitching myself to these
Wow.
people.
Did you just
So
like figured it was best not to have a manager?
no, I mean, they won't have me. Like, I'm trying to get representation, but
Oh,
it's definitely, it makes me feel optimistic when I see somebody like Crowder, taking on Nick DiPaolo. Like I got excited for a second there. Like, okay, maybe Daily Wire wants to like dabble in entertainment. It'll be interesting to see. And then of course with Russell Brand, I think he
mhm,
released his comedy special on Rumble. So it'll be interesting to see in the next couple of years, like who of these alternative platforms, starts wanting, who wants to focus on building up their comedy. I hope that's more of a priority for folks. I think it will be.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, that's something that I've kind of noticed too. I mean, because you brought up what you just said, like, can lead to so many different questions, for sure, that I'm curious about. But yeah, there's definitely a shift that is being extremely pushed and stuff. And talking about like how it's hard for you to find representation, is that just because of your
I
beliefs
think it's
or?
mostly I don't think it's even my material. I think it's what comes up when you Google me.
Oh,
It's
really?
like, yeah, and I guess I kind of lean into that because I don't think that people should be judged for that, and I think you could be very misunderstood by the internet, and I think that's how they wanna control people and control your behavior. Because if you're
Hmm.
afraid of an unflattering article or unflattering tweets or whatever, again, it's like you self-censor. It's the same thing with, and there's so much self-censoring going on in comedy. Just if you wanna get a late night spot, if you wanna get on TV, like, if you want to impress certain gatekeepers, you have to, I learned kind of early on, like, you have to politically kind of go a certain way. They're
Mm.
just not really. Yeah, sometimes I wonder, I'm like, is it my politics? Is it because I don't think I'm that extreme. I don't think my jokes are that spicy. Like anyone who's been to a live show, like I've had people say, "Oh, I thought you were going to be more political." So I think people are afraid, or maybe management is afraid to be like, "Oh, well, she was a January 6th," or "Oh, well, she's an out Trump voter," or but who knows? Maybe I'm just like not funny enough yet. Maybe I'm not at the point where an agent or a manager would be like, "Oh, wow, we can make a lot of money off of her. Like, let's get on board."
Mhm.
So, in the meantime, I just have to keep working harder and building up my fan base like myself. And, even if I don't get any bigger, I don't care. My goal was always to just be able to quit my day job and make my whole income just off of comedy. And I'm already there, and it's something I'm super grateful for every single day. So if I can just like maintain where I'm at and go higher, great.
Mhm.
And it feels good to help out friends and people who have had my back for the last few years, especially through like the lockdown stuff. And I was one of the few comics who actually took a stand during the mandates in New York City because de Blasio was like,
Mhm.
he was enforcing all of the comedy venues to, you had to be jabbed to perform there. So I was like, I guess I'm not performing in New York City anymore. Like, I was like, okay, because over the lockdowns, I had been doing more road stuff. So I was at a point where I was okay with it. I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to perform in New York City clubs anymore. And then they were finally lifted, I think, like last summer. So I started getting back out there more.
Mhm.
But it felt good to take that stand. It felt good to like put my money where my mouth was. And I was shocked at how few other comics also kind of like joined me on that. More people wanted to disassociate from me than be like, "Yeah, I also won't perform, like, this is wrong." And I learned,
Oh
like,
boy.
most comedians are honestly, most of them are just paycheck to paycheck, and they're not trying to do anything that will exclude them from gigs, so a lot of them are kinda towing the line where they can.
Mhm.
So I do understand that not everyone is in a position to be outspoken or take a stand. So I was lucky that I was able to do that. And then later on, like Jim Brewer came out and said that he wasn't going to perform anywhere that had the mandates. And of course, like Tyler Fisher, that's how he and I met and kind of bonded. Um, and he was already going through a tough time. His manager was like, he was more from the acting background, and his manager was already telling him, "Sorry, I have no roles for you. You're like a white guy. You're a straight white guy. Sorry."
Oh yeah,
So,
the voice acting stuff with the mandates and stuff. I've heard about that too, and it just
wow.
sounded absolutely awful. And Grant, I'm in Texas, so I know we weren't super, you know, super pushy about that
You're
stuff. But
enjoying all that sweet freedom.
I know, and I just want everyone who has to face like what you faced up in New York to just be like, dude, either fucking leave or like
True.
get
Not everybody can leave
get those
though.
assholes out because they know nothing.
Yeah.
It's they're all in it. It's all smoke and mirrors to all the the rhinos and the libtards. They're all fucking in the same orgy, and it's it's so insane that people and that's like the craziest thing too is just kind of what you were talking about too, where it's like, is it my politics or my ideology and stuff like that? It's like you can't. It's this concept. I was talking with Ruben Langdon, and he was the voice actor, stuntman, and motion capture for Dante from Devil May Cry. And
Hmm.
he was kind of, I always like to try to find like if I can get someone that's been established kind of in the industry and been there for a long time. It's like, was this idea of like if you agree with one specific thing, like this extremity, like was that like there back in the day? And I'm getting all the answers of like no, like it wasn't there,
Hmm.
or they were kept out,
Yeah,
sort
there
of
wasn't
thing.
all of
And
this, like, guilty by association. You could
hmm
work with people and your politics didn't matter, it didn't come up. They were
hmm
very good at keeping it separate, and I guess do we wanna blame social media for that? I think social media led to people's canceling, but it also led to the complete, like, downfall of celebrity because now anyone can really be a celebrity, and now we actually see what the celebrities' real lives are
hmm
like, seeing how for me, like, seeing how big their freaking houses were during the lockdowns, I'd be like, "Oh, we're definitely not all in this together, okay, Madonna, like, you can afford to have a milk bath, like, you're
oh
look at everyone's pool, like, look at your huge foyer." Like, I was like, "I'm done." I the last sliver of curiosity I had about celebrities was, completely
hmm
destroyed during the lockdowns. I think for a lot of people, it's like this is
oh
like the sort
absolutely.
of like mirage, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it kind of like the clouds lifted and we are like, "Wow, why are we worshiping these people? Why do we give a fuck what they're up to?" Probably a lot of people listening to this are like, "I already didn't care about celebrities. I was already over them." Maybe it's like a chick thing, like we're more inclined to keep after celebrities, but I just was like, that was the
Mhm.
final nail for me.
I definitely know that as much as it is the 2016, obviously when Trump got elected and all that stuff, that's when the masks finally came off from people because
Mm,
it's either you have the people who are cowards and will support you behind the scenes, but they're not gonna
yeah,
support you in anything. And I do understand that not all of them are cowards. I understand that there's some people are like, look, I'm just trying to live here, man. And if I got to do this and say this to keep food on the table, I understand that. But to me, it's like, well, how much are you going to compromise truth? And for
yeah,
something that's over half the time over something so fucking stupid, like, oh, you support that? Well, you're XYZ, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, dear Lord, like, I don't support every fucking thing like this person does, sort of thing, too. And that was something I was going to ask as well. When you got started into wanting to do comedy as a career and whatnot, and did you kind of see that maybe like the tail end of it, or did you kind of get
you mean of
into it
like
when
cancel culture per
not so
se?
much cancel culture, but this idea of like, and this is something I'm noticing too, lefty comedy, I guess you could say, is if you make fun of a Christian, Trump, Republicans, you're the
You're
funniest person on the
golden. You'll
yeah, you're
never have one bad word, like, you will
yeah,
not be
exactly.
criticized.
And then you have people like you and other people who just want to point out the absurdity of stuff or what have you, or talk about stuff
But it
that's
takes
funny.
almost nothing for you to be labeled a far-right extremist or an alt-right person, or
hmm
and it's like they're so quick, like, literally anything, like, searching, like, a ma with a magnet, finding the smallest thing, "Oh, great, we can put you in this box, completely disregard you, cool."
hmm yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering. I guess just when did you kind of really want
I
took
did not
comedy
learn that
serious?
right away because when I started comedy, it was 2010. I
Mm,
was living in Brooklyn. I was like freshly kind of out of college, out of the improv world. I was a feminist. I was a Democrat. I was very much a liberal. I was like textbook female comedian. Hated my dad, everything. So I was kind of accepted like easily right away. Like had a lot of friends in the comedy community, a lot of female comedian friends. Um I I hosted a couple shows, but the biggest show that I was hosting every month was the Stonewall Inn. So it's like a gay landmark, like gay club. Like I had like tons of gay friends, and it'd be like I'd be doing my show like in between, like drag shows, and was going there every month, like was very much a fixture at the Stonewall. And so everybody who's wants to be friends with you, and they see the show doing better and better over the years, and then they're hitting you up for spots. And then because of where it was located, I could get people from the Comedy Cellar over. So it was like this really great mix of like up and coming LGBT talent with like some heavy hitters from the Cellar, and then like just my friends sprinkled in too. And then in 2018, my mom died, and I was like, okay, I got to start getting on more podcasts. Like I just was grieving really hard, and also feeling like, okay, like I have this whole like huge hole in my life, and I was trying to fill it with things for myself, and maybe the things I wasn't, kind of ignoring, like that I always wanted to do. So for me, that was like podcasting and I started going on Compound Media. And that's when I feel like my sense of humor like really flourished, because all the guys on the network have like a similarly like dirty, like politically correct, anti-woke sense of humor as I do. And so I just felt like, oh wow, like I feel like these people get me. I feel like their audience gets me. And it's kind of like the same sense of humor I've always had, but I just was like, okay, now I'm finally with people I feel like get me, and I can make the kind of jokes that I want to. And this was even way before like YouTube. I wasn't even on YouTube in a serious way until 2020. So just started going on podcasts more, and then I just didn't have time to host at Stonewall Inn every month. So I went from hosting a show at the Stonewall Inn to now I have I pitched and got a weekly show on Compound Media, which it's called the Free Speech Network, but people, because of Anthony Cumia, that's his network. And he's pretty right. People just associate the entire network with the far right. It didn't even matter that like Michael Malice had a show on there. It didn't matter like people of varying political opinions had shows on there. But again, it's like it takes that one little thing, and then they can just dismiss you and put you in that box. So I went from hosting a monthly show at the Stonewall Inn to now a show on Compound Media. Had a whole like that was the first wave of people kind of turning their back on me and being like, oh, don't want to associate anymore. Yikes, kind of distancing themselves. Friends not really getting in touch anymore. And then I just felt like my political awakening started happening because I did not vote for Trump the first time around. I was like very just mindlessly, brainlessly anti-Trump, but not knowing why, just because the TV told me to. And then just hearing him for 4 years being like fake news. And something just clicked, and I woke up like 2018, really 2019, then voted for Trump in 2020. And then I was an out Trump voter. I was talking about it, like not ashamed of it. That was another wave of people like not fucking with me anymore, kind of turning their back, being like, ugh, okay, you're even more hard right now. You're even more like extreme. It takes almost nothing, because this is New York City comedy scene where everyone is pretty liberal, or if they're conservative or right of center, they're very quiet about it. They're like, there's just not that many, especially women are not putting it out there that that's their politics. And I think that's helped me, because that's what's helped me to stand out too, because there's fewer women in comedy in general, because the lifestyle is ultimately not appealing to them. Like, you start stand up ultimately like after college, like maybe you could start in college. You get a few cases like, oh, Pete Davidson or Liz Mealy, they start when they're teenagers, but that's rare. Most people start comedy when they're in their 20s. But for women, it's like, okay, and you got to basically sink 10 years in to make a dent, find your voice, start getting, gigs, maybe even attempt to make a living. That's what everyone says. It's 10 years. But most women don't want to sink 10 years of like the best years of their life that they should be dating, getting married, having kids. Most women don't want to sign up for that, because they're like, I don't want to potentially waste all this time and then not even make it. So that's why there's more guys that do stand up, and perhaps maybe it is a biological thing where like it's this peacocky urge to like impress women. Like maybe more guys are funnier, or they have a sense of humor that works better on stage. Like people go, oh, are women funny? Women aren't funny. Oh. Like I'll hear this backhanded compliment a lot. It's like, you're the only female comedian I like, which I love hearing, but it's also like a lot of people will hear horrible female stand-up comics and go, oh, women aren't funny, which is not true. Women are just as funny, just in a different way, and two different like women, like we crack up our friends, like we have our own kind of like language, and I'm lucky that my sense of humor is kind of more like a guy's, and that's why I felt like at home at Compound Media, because I was like, oh my god, we have the same sense of humor, and it kind of vibes generally with guys better, but not like I'm just a guy's girl either. I have
Mhm.
like plenty of now like based female friends as well, but it took a while to sort it out, and it was like many stages of like sloughing off friends. Well, basically them sloughing off me, because and then January 6th was the third big kind of like cancellation wave. Like I just said this on another show. I had after the 6th, I had people, random people I had never even heard of, messaging my Facebook friends, being like, "Hey, just letting you know, like Chrissy was at the Capitol on January 6th, and I see that you're Facebook friends with her, so you might want to unfriend her." And like I guess that worked for some people, because you don't know who's unfriending you. You just like, "Oh, I
Yeah,
haven't heard from this person in a couple years."
that's what
And
happened
you're
to my friend Eric when he
Yeah, it's
when
wild.
he
It's like, why does someone care so much? First of all,
mhm,
Facebook is dying. Like, who cares so much? Who is still someone I don't even know is like going, "Oh, you gotta unfriend Chrissy." I'm like, that's such a
mhm.
loser mentality thing to do.
Yeah,
But
he shared his thoughts about when the whole, hydrochloroquine sort of thing was not, not true and doesn't help and all that stuff. And all he did was just share something about like, well, this one doctor used it for some patients and they got better for it. And it's like, let's,
uh-oh, yeah.
if it, yeah, if there's a chance for it working, like, let's at least have hope. Like, that was the
Right.
main message. Like, we can still have hope and not be afraid of this. Ooh, just dog piled on sort of thing. And it's
Wow.
like, it's unbelievably like it's cowardice too, because then these people, because then he kind of confronted them and actually like talked to them and stuff like that. And they were like, well, we're kind of, and this was kind of like in a group setting sort of thing. And it's like, well, you should have came and talked to us like individually and stuff like that. It's like you
Yeah.
fuckers attacked him on Facebook. Like,
The
don't,
mob mentality was wild.
yeah.
And nobody the people, oh god, and then I would see, some girl I did improv with 15 years ago go off about me on Twitter like, "Oh, she's really changed. I used to know her." And it's like, "Girl, like you are literally only dropping my name for some kind of clout, for some kind of cancel clout. Like, I don't know who you're trying to impress with this." It's this weird psychological thing that people do. They see people dogpiling and they go, "Ooh, here's my chance to get attention. I will also join
Hmm.
in this dog pile." It's when you learn it's ultimately very selfish and it's ultimately not about you, you can kind of like take a breath and distance yourself from it. But that which is easier said than done, because while it's happening, anybody who feel like they've had a tweet that's gone viral or something where you've got a lot of blowback or backlash from, like you're in that moment, you're like, oh my God, this is picking up speed. Oh my God, I'm getting so much hate. You're like, ah. And
Hmm.
sometimes that lasts a night, sometimes that lasts 6 weeks. This is just what happens
Hmm.
when you put your true feelings out there, usually with like Twitter or a joke or something or a clip. The more you do it, like the more chance and the more honest you're being, and the more creative you are, the more likely you are to have something that's gonna piss people off. But then you also risk like putting out something that's genius that people love, and that's how you find your fans. So the risk is ultimately worth it.
Hmm. Yeah. And then, yeah, exactly what you said as well. And you brought up the idea of definitely like, does has social media helped fuel this? I think it's obviously like with anything, technology, you can use it for good and bad sort of thing too. In the good sense, it's that these people that, back in the 90s, to where it's like, I really like that person, and maybe you could find those actors or actresses addresses and send them a letter and be like, I really would like your autograph. Like, I remember doing that for Jim Carrey, and
Oh, really?
yeah, and I actually did get something back. I did get a headshot with it saying "Spank you
He
very
sent you
much."
back an envelope of herpes. You're like, "Thanks."
Oh yeah, yeah. He sent me a dead mouse in my face. I'm just like, oh fuck, sort of thing. Herpes would be worse though, that's for sure.
He
But
apparently he gave an ex-girlfriend herpes and she killed herself.
wait, what?
Yeah, that was like a story for a while that Jim Carrey gave this woman
Carrie? Like
herpes.
recently or like way back in
Jim
the day?
Carrey, yeah, this was a couple years ago.
Dude,
Legit, like, she unalived herself
I'm
over
not
it.
I'm not surprised, because the way that guy's gone crazy, with his weird ass paintings and all that stuff. If I remember right, I'm not surprised at
Wow,
all.
that's
Well, this was
crazy.
back in the 90s where you were innocent and were like, I like Jim Carrey. He's funny, sort of
I
thing.
know, you wanna like him because he's
Yeah,
so
you
funny.
and going back to what I was saying was like now you have social media where you can actually talk to the person or see who they are. And then of course that leads to what happened with this whole diversion of 2016 onward is you'll have again those people who are doing like what you said for diversity clout and are fake, or they're showing their real colors and also removing the mask because they know they have power in the sense of that big media and all that are more on their side than they are on the other side too.
Yeah, it's not taking a risk. It's like you're going with the crowd, you're going with corporations, you're going with the government, like, it's the safest take you can have is to be
Which
woke.
why would you want to go with the government? That's fucking stupid. You
Well, it feels good to be on the winning team, like, that's
no.
why, like, the liberals are so arrogant, basically. It's like they own culture,
Hmm.
their side is in power now and has comfortably been for a couple of years, so it's like, yeah, it's like,
Hmm.
you're like, "We're in charge now.
Yep,
We're
I
cool."
understand it, but yet I also am like you are a fucking idiot when you go if you're gonna go up there at one point and go, well, I supported you. Can I have the piece of the pie now? And they're gonna go, hell no, we're not gonna give
Yeah.
it. It's like you guys
They're
are
gonna be like, "Who are
you,
you?"
yeah, exactly, straight sheep, and it's so
Mhm.
sad and pathetic. Going back to a comment that you just mentioned not too long ago, you said you did improv. Did you take Second City? Because I actually, when I used to live back in Illinois, I took Second City in Chicago.
Ooh. I did the Upright Citizens Brigade, which is like the New York equivalent of Second City, and I did the
Okay.
Magnet Theater. So
Oh,
it's pretty
cool, cool.
similar. And
Okay.
yeah, because after when I was in college, I really thought I wanted to be a news reporter. And then I interned at Dateline. I was like, oh, this is horrible. And then I interned at Conan when he was still in the city. So I was like, okay, no, comedy. This is my vibe. These are my people. And the writers were all like, take improv. If you're interested in comedy at all, just take improv. And I was like, okay, cool. So, did that for 5 years, did
Oh, wow.
classes and teams at both theaters, then I did a one-woman show, and then I started stand-up because I was very scared at the idea of doing stand-up for a long time, I was really intimidated by it, but after I did that one-woman show, I was like, "Okay, like, I think I can do this because I just did an hour on stage and all these different characters, so I finally had the balls after that one-woman show to start that doing stand-up, and then I knew for sure, like but I always had least 1 or 2 day jobs, like, for years. I never some comics, like, they have rich parents that can float them because 'cause you'll see,
Yeah.
like, "Wow, how can you afford an apartment in Manhattan and you don't seem to have a day job?" Like, you're always at these 4 o'clock mics, and you're like, "Oh, rich parents, okay." Or some people get lucky, like, they're dating someone who's rich or they're married and their significant other pays all the bills, and you'll see that with men too, like, sometimes men will pursue comedy and they'll have, like, a sugar mama, like, wife with a real corporate job, and then she pays the bills, and it's like because it's really hard to do, and maintain and, like, survive unless you have a combination of multiple jobs, multiple roommates, or you're
Mhm.
really talented and you get really lucky and you break it, early on. So it's some combination of that.
So when it comes to improv, did it really like feel like it clicked for you? Because I know for me, with improv, when like my ADHD and a little bit of my Asperger's kicks into play, my like brain just shoots out like all this stuff really quick. And with obviously with improv, like with Second City, their whole thing is yes and like
Yep.
you don't
Mhm.
want to shut down people's ideas. You want to add on to it to create something that's meaningful and organic and something that you probably didn't see what was coming down the road, even though you're in your mind. I know at least for me, it was like you have all these ideas that you would like to see like kind of get shot out, but in the end, it doesn't really go that way, sort of thing. Like, did you feel very liberated doing um
Yeah, it is great for
improv?
ADD. It helps channel your ADD and it helps
Hmm.
you like it's great for your inner child. Improv is really great for anybody. If you wanna make friends, if you wanna just feel like getting out of your comfort zone, if you wanna work on your public speaking, if you wanna meet new
Hmm.
people, it's it's good for so many things, and there's transferable skills that you can bring to a lot of different industries. Like there were guys in my class that were like divorced and wanted to get back out there. There were guys in my class who wanted to help with their work like speeches and shit like that. So I didn't know at the time that I had ADD because I didn't take the ADD test until I was working in the admissions department of an all boys prep school on the Upper East Side. That was like years after improv. That was like
Mhm.
but of course, like now it's clear, like, yeah, I very much had and have ADD. So just for me, it was like it felt just like playing, and I was always, like a class clown, and even in my
Mhm.
family situation growing up, we were constantly making fun of each other. We were as a very passive aggressive household I grew up in,
Oh yeah.
and,
Yep.
we're all just constantly roasting each other. Not the healthiest, not the best for, like, self-love, but, like, great
Oh,
for developing
yep.
a sense of humor.
Mhm.
So, it does kind of channel your ADD, and it's fun to do for a few years, but then you're like I mean, there's people who spend years and years and years doing improv, and after a couple
Mm.
years, you're like, "Okay, am I gonna do this professionally? Am I gonna make a living from doing improv?" Because it's literally like TJ and Dave and some people from the UCB are able to make a full-time living from improv. That's it. The rest of the people, you're literally taking $600 and lighting it on fire every 4 to 6 weeks. Like that
Yep.
is you're it's I think it is more likely that you will make a living off stand-up than improv. But it's improv, like a lot of these improv people, they're also doing acting or they have some other corporate job. But it's good to realize like before you sink too much money and like, okay, where is this gonna lead to you? Because there's a lot of people that were just like, oh, praying that they're gonna get picked up by an SNL.
Mm.
That's never gonna happen. But they just want you to keep obviously paying for classes. And then I think they went bankrupt over the lockdowns.
Oh,
So
jeez. Well,
UCB definitely did. But it's good. It's a good skill to have for
yeah, I
sure.
didn't advance super far into Second City, but yeah, it definitely felt very comfortable in the sense that you could just spout whatever craziness you're thinking of due to stuff. That's interesting that you took the test for ADD. Well, I find that interesting because I took like back when I was in first grade. That's kind of when my folks were kind of finding out about the whole ADHD and stuff like that. And like mine was actually like a brain scan. They actually
Oh
scanned.
wow.
Yeah, because I remember being really scared about how they were going to test me, and they said they're just going to put like a cap on your head, sort of thing, with the stuff that like
Wow.
measured your impulse, your chemical balances and stuff like that. Like I remember that
So
sort
you
of thing.
went in a machine. Was it like an MRI?
I didn't really go into. I can't remember all the exactly what happened. I
How
didn't like. I
old were
don't think I
you?
went into a machine that was like an MRI, but they like kind of almost like what you see in the sci-fi movies where they put the cap on your head with like a
Oh
bunch of
my
the stuff. Yeah, this was like back in like
god.
1991 and stuff like that. They were
Okay, wow.
because that was kind of the thing that
They're
my folks
handing out
pointed out was
Ritalin. Yeah.
Ritalin. Oh gosh, yeah, I tried. We went through everything. Ritalin, Prozac and all that fun stuff.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, no, I was just curious on that sort of obviously I'm not trying to pry into
Yeah, I
anything
just took
like
a
that.
written test and,
Oh, okay.
passed it with flying colors. Got like, went way my score was way, like, 20 or 25 points over the minimum of what you could get to qualify for it. I was like, "Uh-oh." It was, like, a little embarrassing how high my score was.
Yeah.
And then I was on ARL for a couple of years, and then I was like, "You know what? I don't wanna be." I think it was a little bit of, like, hearing my dad's voice in my head, like, I don't wanna be reliant on a drug, period, but certainly not something that
Mhm.
is costing me $90 a month, and if I lose my insurance, who knows? Like, I don't wanna be able to not afford
Yeah.
something that I need to function, so I
Mhm.
just kinda stopped taking it. I don't know if
Okay.
that was for the best, but I don't know, I just didn't wanna be
I've been taking
reliant.
medication all my life, so I'm used to it, sort of thing. So, no, that's just very interesting. That's I did because I didn't know like because I mean I would take therapy classes,
Yeah.
like go to therapy sessions and talk about that stuff as well. And I haven't been there for like a long, long time. So, I'm once you get told like you're this or this and stuff because I'm a nice batch of stuff. It's always fun sort of thing. So I was like, "Oh, really?" Like, that's wondering how they treat it now, because that's the whole thing too. Is like, oh, everyone has ADHD, or it's
I know, I also feel like
not
that's
real
part
or
like,
something like
bullshit, like,
that.
they just wanna sell more pills, like,
Yeah,
they want all of us on something.
big fucking pharma.
Yeah.
So, something that I'm curious about. Obviously, I don't know if you've been asked this. I'm sure you have, but like, who are kind of your favorite stand-up comedians or people that you
Oh,
just
yeah.
enjoy, like either their writing or their delivery, sort of thing too? Did you kind of had like
I
a? Oh,
love,
go ahead.
love, love Jim Brewer. He's, like, one of my absolute favorites. He's just so entertaining. He's like a wild he's so physical. I love all his voices. Like, watching him inspires me to be better for sure. Um, God, I mean, I was very early on, like, inspired by Aaron Berg. Like, he's a New York comic, really great crowd work.
Mhm.
Love Ricky Gervais for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
God, who else do I like? Doug Stanhope is great. Jim Norton is so funny. Anthony Cumia has now become, like, a really great stand-up. Like, he was always so funny.
Hmm.
He's like a, radio legend. He's just so funny behind the desk, and he just started doing stand-up the last couple of years and has just been absolutely crushing it.
Nice. Yeah. What do you think about Norm Macdonald passing? I felt like definitely like his humor, but I feel like I got on the Norm Macdonald bandwagon like way towards
Too
the
late?
end. Yeah, too late sort of thing. Because I really enjoyed his work. If Have you ever seen the show Mike Tyson Mysteries or heard of it?
No.
That's kind of a show that a lot of people don't know that Norm Macdonald voices a pigeon. He's a
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's kind of one where, like, a lot of people didn't really know about it sort of thing, and that was kind of when I mean, in the show, it's literally just him, like, doing I don't know if they're his actual stand-up bits, but it's Norm just being Norm sort of thing too,
Yeah.
and I always really appreciated Norm for just not giving a shit and, like,
Yeah.
going for, like, "I'm gonna say the punchline, I'm gonna do it," and it's the weird of like, well, I'm making myself laugh. So that's all that, I really care about sort of thing. And seeing
It was
the
great that he didn't give a
reactions of
shit.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I was kind of tying into that too, because I never got like really fully into like the stand-up era sort of thing. But I remember growing up, like the big person was Dane Cook. Like I remember
Oh
everyone.
my god, I ran into Dane Cook
Oh, really?
last month when I was at the Comedy Store. I was doing, my friend's show, and I was like, "Oh my god, what's up, Dane?" Like, just 'cause he's just a little bit of a comedy, like, icon. He's just been doing it forever.
Hmm.
He was like, what the f he came up, what, in the MySpace days, or was it YouTube? He pioneered something, but he just was, like, talking about how he's excited to get married. His fiancée's 24. He's like, "I like that I've had a whole life before she was even born." Like, she just has no clue about some of the stuff I've done, and he just seemed like a really nice guy. And I don't do this with, like, a lot of people, but I was like, "Oh, let's get a selfie." So,
Hey,
I
you
was a little
got
bit of
to
a
when the
fanboy.
opportunity arises,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah, I guess I was kind of just wondering, like, because that's kind of who I remember being like one of the big people that specifically like stand up was Dane Cook, uh, Carlos Mencia, but then with the whole joking that he
Joke stealing
steals,
thing. Yeah.
joke stealing thing and stuff like that. Because I was wondering if you kind of had uh people like or like watched stand up comedians and kind of like had a list of those people, or was
I
it
was
pretty much
actually
just
never a comedy nerd
oh,
ever,
okay.
which feels weird, but even now, like, I'm never the first person to watch, like, a hot new special. Like, I still haven't watched, like, Chris Rock's latest special, but you do it for kinda like, okay, research purposes, but I also tend to Jim
Mhm,
Norton is this way too. Like, I try to not watch a lot of comedy because I don't want a joke to get in my head and, like, burrow through, and then a couple months later, I write the same one, and I think it's my original, like, yes, there's always gonna be a degree of same brain
mhm.
stuff that happens, but I just never want to inadvertently take someone's material, so that's another reason why I kind of don't watch a ton of stand-up, but, you'll see clips of it, of course, just from scrolling social media. That's what's good about what a lot of comics are doing now, which is just you're putting crowd work online, so you're not burning through your material, but you're still getting like, all right, this is a good like self promotion, gives people a sense of like what you do.
Okay, cool. Could you go through your kind of share with us your process of what you go through to like go into writing jokes and whatnot? Are you more someone who kind of talks about like, hey, this funny situation happened towards me, or are you more like, I'm trying to think of the word, I guess like puns or something like that, playing, that
I
sort.
love a good pun. My process is really non-linear. Of course, I have like a storage bank of 13 years of
Mhm.
jokes. And like some fall off over the years. Like I'm like pretty disorganized, so probably a lot of them have fallen off over the years. But it's just a lot of like Twitter helps. Podcasting actually helps a lot because
Hmm.
you that helps. Like you'll say something that makes people laugh on a podcast. You're like, all right, there's something there. There's like a nugget there. And if I was really good, I would write all of those down and make a set from that. But um, yeah, I think just the Twitter is like a good exercise. Podcasting is a good exercise. Doing a morning show is a good exercise because you're just always getting a sense of like, what do you find funny? What is hitting with people?
Okay.
Uh,
Huh.
yeah,
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah,
yeah, it all helps.
I it seems like you're definitely someone who kind of has the gift of like being able to tell an awesome story and like just whether like just deliver it like perfect every time. Because I did notice on like some of the streams that I've watched and some of the shows I watch when you're on it, whether it's your show or on someone else's show, like and then again that improv popping up, it's just like bing, that sniper shot sort of thing. And it was like, dang, that was fast. Like,
Especially on podcasts when there's, like, a lot of people, sometimes all I have is the opportunity to, like, send in a one-liner or just, like, a sneaky little joke, so, yeah, I appreciate that. You
yeah,
gotta, like, just,
absolutely.
like timing is so important, and then you'll have a joke in your head, and then you'll be like, "Alright, this is about to not be relevant anymore," and then sometimes you have to let it go, or sometimes if it comes up later or sometimes you can get someone to set you up perfectly for it. Like,
So,
what was an example? I think it was,
mm,
no, there was something really funny. Dang.
that's all
Alright.
right. We have
No,
all
I
the.
forgot. I forgot. There's something that happened on Friday Night Tights where
Oh, I was gonna
I
say,
had a joke in mind, and then one of the guys just set me up so perfectly for it, and I was like, "Ah," it was just like a magical moment. Now I forget.
so when it comes to your type of humor, have you kind of found like the genre or I guess the category you could place yourself in? I know you said you're obviously enjoy a dirty joke here and there. Some people can just like Norm like to tell old man jokes and just prolong it forever. You have
Oh, yeah,
people
yeah.
that just like
That was great.
you just
Yeah, just do, like, 2
yeah.
beats too much. Yeah.
Do you feel like you've kind of gotten your craft honed to where you kind of like, "Oh, I guess I'm kind of in this genre of sort of comedy."
I
Like, is
don't
there an
know. Yeah, I
actual
don't know
like
what
category list of
don't
comedy,
know
or is
what
it?
type. I don't know where I fall. It's a good question, though. There are some people that I'll hear, like, consider me a right-wing comic. There's people who will go, "Oh, you're
Well,
definitely libertarian." And there's some people like, "Oh, you're a chick. I'm writing you off entirely." So, it just really depends on, like, who the viewer is.
yeah, I've noticed like I never really understood the whole problem with like, oh, you're a chick, so you can't tell jokes or what have you. And I'm like, been around plenty of chicks that like have said funny shit, sort of thing. But it's like, I mean, what's her? I mean, but if you're like Amy Schumer, where you're like, yeah, I got that guy humor, and you're just like, one, you're unbelievable because I don't believe it for a second, and two,
Mhm.
it's just like it's like what you said too. There's something different that is between like a male comic and a female comic, but yet each one can be unique and funny at the same time, or not. Well, funny in general. Scratch out the same time sort of thing because it's like two people together, which that's not what I meant, sort of thing.
It's a hard thing to put into words, and I think Amy Schumer, like, did kind of ruin it for a lot of actually funny. And I'm sure there's people that find Amy Schumer actually funny. I hate to it feels like the easy, how like Trump is the easy thing for
Mhm.
anybody right of center, very easy to bag on him. Like, I mean, left of center. Like Trump is like the go-to for lefties. I feel like Amy Schumer is like a go-to person to make fun of for a lot of male comics or anybody that's like not a raging liberal. So I don't want to like fall into that stereotype, but I think the reason for why a lot of people are upset with Amy Schumer is she was very funny and anti-woke and anti-PC, because I think it was during the time that she was dating Dane Cook, and he may or may not have helped her with some material, maybe some of the guys she was hanging out with. Who knows? It's like it's hard to know, because then when she became famous, she made a hard left and went very PC, very the establishment, went very woke. So, and then people go, "Oh man, like it felt like, oh, she turned her back on her real fans or she changed." And then people are like, "Oh, is this the real her now, or was how she was before the real her and now she's changing her comedy to make it in Hollywood?" And then people feel betrayed. So, when people bring up Amy Schumer, they're just afraid to like somebody, and then they turn their back on their fans, or they lose or change their voice, or maybe they just were pretending to be a certain way. It's hard to know, when
Mhm.
you change your voice like very dramatically, to know where you really stand. I'm saying this so poorly, but that's why Amy Schumer gets a lot of hate from people.
Don't worry. I feel like I'm doing bad sort of thing too.
We're all
I'm
doing
just super
bad.
ex I'm super excited. That's why. So dealing with the whole like and woke culture and all that stuff, is that, I mean, obviously any sort of comedian's going to have like heckling and stuff like that. Is that something to where kind of like maybe with the shows, not so much that, or if it's happened sort of thing, but like if you've ever seen a show, has like the audience changed now to where any sort of you know anti woke and all that stuff just starts up like a heckling or people getting mad and all that stuff? Is like, have you seen that become more prominent?
I'm lucky, really lucky now. I'm at the point where I am seeing like a good amount of my actual fans coming to my shows.
Oh,
Whereas when
awesome.
you start out in comedy, you just have whatever audience comes to the club that day, and then that's part
Hmm.
of your set is like winning them over very quickly. Who are you? What are you about? What is your point of view? Why should they care? What are you offering that's different than everybody else they've heard that night or will hear from? But what's cool about having your own audience is like, okay, they already know me. They already listen to me on podcasts. They're either fans of Friday Night Tights, or they're fans of Compound Media, or they've been listening to my stuff for like months or years. They already like know you, which is awesome, but you also don't want to take that for granted, because you still need like it's nice to it's like you're like the knife, right? And you want the audience to be like your sharpening stone. Like they need to tell you. That's why like people are both intimidated by and love Black audiences, because they will let you know right away if you're bombing or if they don't like a subject or a joke. That is one that is one thing that like comedians that are uber famous, like, Chappelle Rogan level, you'll just, oh my God, everything you say is amazing. Where there might be in the back of your brain, you're like, okay, was this actually funny, or do they just love me? They're just excited that I'm here. Um, I'm definitely not at that level yet, but yeah, at the same time, like every crowd, you are testing the waters. You want to do your tried and true stuff. You definitely want to take a risk at some point during each set, or several risks depending on like how long your set is. You don't want to be too safe, because it's like, why are you want to give some things that are for them, some jokes that are for you, and then most of it should just be kind of like for everybody. So, yeah, I mean, I've had a couple people walk out, but not that many.
Hmm.
I try to like win people over, um, even if it's a heckler. That's usually just somebody drunk. But I always try to like charm my way into someone liking me. Like I'm not the type to be abrasive. I'm not the type to be like, "Fuck you, you don't like it, you can leave." Like I try to be sweeter and nicer and like more charming to crack like if there's a tough nut in the crowd.
Hmm. Yeah, I was just curious because I guess, like we said, like the way like everything is just going to extreme sort of thing. Like I guess specifically like with stand up and even comedy in general, because now they're trying to push like if only this sort of material is funny and anything else is not funny, sort of thing. And it's like, well, like with stereotypes, for example, like there's a reason there's stereotypes out there in the world. It's because it's shining a
Yeah.
light on something that makes you feel uncomfortable. But the way I look at it is like that's the best part, to just laugh at yourself and thus laugh at the situation and go, yeah, that does kind of is uncomfortable. But yet it's weirdly like, yeah, that is weird that you have these stereotypes or what have you, for example, sort of
Stereotypes
thing.
are always gonna be funny. Like, you're
Hmm.
lying if you're somebody who's, "Oh, I've never laughed at a racist joke. I've never laughed at a misogynistic joke. I only laugh at the correct topics." Like, you're full of it.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, the fact that all this, like I said, all this stuff just is just infiltrating this area. And I guess specifically with comedy, I guess I'm curious, do you think there's kind of like an indie sort of comedy, in the sense of like where it's like, okay, if I can't, kind of like what you were mentioning right now, like, yeah, it'd probably be nice to have an agent too, but if I can't get one, like I'm gonna do my own stuff, I'm gonna do this sort of stuff, because we're seeing like, in the comic book industry, indie exploding, video game industry, indies exploding. Do you think that there's like one with comedy as well, or stand up?
Yeah, definitely. It used to be the only way you could make it or have a career is like you start in a city like LA or New York and you get a late night spot. You get management off of that, and then that management gets you into commercials or sitcom or gets you ready for like an HBO or Comedy Central half hour or like hour special. And then boom, that sets you up for a calendar full of road dates, and boom, you're now you know, you make your entire living from comedy just based off of get that Letterman spot or that,
Hmm.
like that Leno spot or whatever. Now it's like, no, like there's just there's more competition. Like social media really changed the game, good and bad, because now a YouTuber, a TikTok star can sell out a comedy club because a comedy club just wants to stay in business. Like they don't care if you're like a grizzled road dog or like the funniest, most underrated comic ever. No, it's like they'll book this chick who like has big tits who was blowing up on TikTok because they also want to stay in business. So and a lot of comics get hung up on like, "Oh, they're not doing it the right way." It's like, well, the right way is, paying your bills. Like, that's everyone needs to
Hmm.
do what's best for them. So and social media really changed the game, and of course, like YouTube. So now it's like anybody can you don't have to live in New York or LA. Anybody can kind of blow up overnight, and it's kind of it's great because now it's like we don't need the gatekeeper so much. It's not like, "Oh, I gotta impress this person with this show or this booker
Hmm.
for this late night show." You can just build up your following your own way, and then you can go to a club and be like, "I have this following. I could potentially sell out this much. Will you give me a weekend or an off night to start out with, and we'll see how it goes." Or you could be a TikTok star or YouTuber who blows up and an agent or a manager goes, "Oh, I can make money off of this person. Hey, can you figure out how to do stand up? Can you figure out 45 minutes of comedy, like, or something on stage that we can sell tickets to?" Boom. So it's not a linear process. And you have someone like Jeremy Piven, who's basically canceled. He got Me Too'd. He's from the acting world. He had this huge audience from Entourage. Boom. He paid somebody to write a stand up set for him. Now he's a stand up and now he sells out rooms that way. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get into the industry. And it's not just about like grinding it out, doing 5 open mics a night till you can do a late night spot. No, it's like you could just make it from TikTok. You could just make it from a lot of different things. You could just blow up on Twitter. It's just we have a lot more tools at our disposal, which is great.
Yeah, that sounds amazing too. Because I guess part of me was, I'm always curious on how deep, like the infestation of just of gatekeeping or what have you. Because hey, I'm a gamer. I like my video games, and guarantee there's all this woke bullshit that's for sure happening in there, and I sure as hell would want that shit to stay out, sort of thing too. But again, like with Hollywood, well, there's a reason why it's called liberal arts and and stuff like that and stuff like that sort of thing. So I was just curious, like if that's sort of like what you were saying, like the gatekeeper sort of thing is kind of dying out now when it comes to comedy, or is it like still pretty prominent too?
Yeah,
Because
there
now it's
there definitely
oh,
still are gatekeepers. There still are is like, of course, like late night comedians that are gonna
mhm,
go the normal route. Like they're not pushing, they're saying all the right things, they have all the right opinions. Okay, well then that route is right for you then. And you're gonna
mhm,
have a really easy time and you'll find success, especially if you're gay or black or trans. If you're an interesting skin color or you're a liberal, like it's gonna be a lot easier for you to make it in that mainstream way. And if you're white and straight and you're not a liberal, it's going to be harder. Just generally, if you want to make it in Hollywood or like the New York City scene, that's why it helps to, all right, I got to find my own fan base somewhere else. Okay. And that's not going to be in a New York City club, or you always, at this point, it doesn't even matter your politics. It has to be some combination of like live shows or a podcast or something else that's
hmm.
going to expand your reach. Because people are just not there's so much competition for your entertainment now. It's not just like a live comedy show. It's like there's Netflix, there's throwing axes at a wall, there's
Jeez.
Grinder, there's Tinder now. So there's just a lot more competition. There's all the streaming services.
So I am curious now, because I've seen the pictures of like you and like Brittany and that Star Wars girl all dressed up as like Sailor Moon
Oh,
and
the
and and
cosplay. Yeah.
and what yeah the cosplay and stuff like that. I'm also a fan of anime,
Oh,
and so I was
anime.
something. Is that something that you? I wanted to know. Is that something you grew up with?
No, not at all. Like my experience with anime is downloading Pokemon Go and then playing it during the pandemic. Like I'm not like an anime person. Like I'm not against it. I just never got into it. Like never was friends with or dating somebody who was into it.
Oh, okay. I was just curious, sort of thing. Like, I guess was I know you said you weren't like always into comedy until you really felt that calling, sort of thing. I guess what sort of stuff entertained you growing up? That's something that you really enjoyed
Oh
doing.
god, like grew up watching Married with Children with my dad. Loved The Simpsons. My sister and brother watched Seinfeld. I felt like I was like younger and it wasn't really I wasn't appreciating Seinfeld. As an adult, I definitely appreciate it more,
Oh yeah, love
but,
Seinfeld.
oh my god, like, I watched cartoons, and then I was a springboard diver competitively, so that really took up, like, most of my time really from, like, 11 all through college.
Oh,
Just
that's
was in the
cool.
like, practicing several hours a day, like, just about every day for most of the year, so I didn't have like, enough time for other hobbies. Like, I don't know, I was, like, yeah, kind of artistic in high school, did, like, studio art, but I was not, like, watching a lot of TV, like, g doing a lot of movies. Like, yeah, I like I'm just like, "Oh, I just know," I can think of, like, CDs that I owned, but
Oh
really
yeah,
just, like, diving took up, like, the biggest chunk of my time.
that's cool. Like, was that something that like you kind of just like that
We
seems
were pool
interesting?
rats, like, we would go to the
Oh,
pool every
okay.
summer, my parents would just, like, drop me and my sister off, my brother too, but, like, we were both on the swim team, and then I would be like, look over, I'd see, like, the divers, I'd be like, "Oh, that looks like way more fun," because I started gymnastics when I was, like, 9, which is too old to start gymnastics, but, it was fun, and then, yeah, like, really took to it, loved it so much, like, would just over and over for hours, like, I was obsessed with it, I loved it, it was a good focus, and I guess I was kind of a perfectionist, but when you're good at something, like, you wanna get even better at it.
Hmm.
And we were both lifeguards, over the years, like, from high school through college too, so it's just was our job, and then it was, like, my free time too, and I was on a little bit of, like, a traveling team. Did, like, Empire State Games, which is basically like, I don't know, like, mini like, kinda like regionals, I guess.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that was, like, my big hobby, and then did it in college, and then after college, there's really, like, nowhere to do it. Um Then you get a job, and then you watch your soul die, no.
Yeah, and then the sad, sad reality
Yeah,
sets
and
in
then
that
your
life.
sad adulthood takes hold.
That's cool because you said that was like actually like in school as well. There was an actual like swim
There
team or
wasn't. We didn't have
oh,
one. We
there
didn't have a swim
wasn't.
unit. We kind of
Oh,
started one, my senior year of college, of high school, we started a swim team because I was a diver. I had, like, 1 or 2 other divers, and then the rest were just swimmers, and, we organized, like, a bus to take us to, like, a couple towns over so we could practice. I don't even know if it's still in existence.
oh, okay. Like, because it feels like people, or at least like kids in school now, like there's actually indoor pools
Mhm.
and there's actual swim teams. I'm like, man, I grew up in like a hick town. I felt like there was like nothing, like, because I remember like some swim teams and stuff like that, but it was never like a part of the school. So it was like out of sight, out of mind. It just didn't
Yeah.
exist, sort of thing. I did
I
see
know.
that. I did
I wish
see
we
you
had a
do that
pool growing
that
up.
one-handed cartwheel. So I did see that. That
Uh,
was very impressive. Can you still
Thank
do it?
you. I can still do a one-handed cartwheel. Yeah.
Yes. There you go.
I'll have to bust one out one day.
One day, just doing stand up or something. Just woo. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
Or
just for the gram or something.
for the gram. Very cool. Very cool. So, well, now I'm curious of what music that you listen to. If you said you
Oh god,
collected
as a kid, Ace of
all
Base,
those
Blues
CDs.
Traveler, Alanis Morissette. What else was I listening to? God, Howie Day. Um, what are my CDs? Metallica, Rage Against the Machine, Lit. Um,
Oh, lit. There you
oh my
go.
god, Blink-182, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have like a specific like type of music that you enjoy listening to, sort of thing, or are you like I always consider myself like a playlist sort of person. It's
I
just
know,
whatever.
I have also turned into a playlist person, and I miss, like, owning a CD, and then you're like, oh, you feel like a real fan because 'cause you're like, "I've held it in my hands, I, like, know the names of all the songs." You're familiar with the art, but now yeah, again, it's just,
Yeah.
like, whatever's on my playlist, and I haven't you occasionally, like a new song every couple months and throw it into the mix, but, ugh, yeah, I'm just such a lazy music fan now.
Yeah, I know for me, a lot of my music taste came from my brother because he would be the person that
Yeah.
would get the CD, and then he's playing it in his room, and your room's not right next door, and you're just listening to it. Like the only CDs I ever went out to actually like have were Weird Al Yankovic CDs.
Oh, ugh. No.
Yeah, I was that person. But I listened to like Limp he would listen to Limp Bizkit, so I would listen Limp Bizkit, Kid Rock, Hoobastank, Nickelback. That
Oh
was
god.
I know. We weren't exactly not really the heavy stuff sort of thing, I guess, but I'm starting to like get more into that now. Some Black Sabbath.
Okay. That's cool.
But yeah, like you said, you're at the point where it's just like that sounds good. Just add it to the playlist. So then you just have your playlist that just is going up and down sort of thing and just
Yeah.
volatile and stuff like so like I guess when it comes to kind of like the area of where comedy and stand up like really takes off, it sounds like it's New York. Is New York like the place for
It
stand
was
up?
New York
It
and
was New
LA.
York.
It was LA if you wanted to get into movies
Mm,
and or commercials or sitcoms, and it's New York if you wanted to do maybe some commercials, but mostly, like, the clubs, and I guess maybe if you're, like, more of a real stand-up, you would tend to go to New York, because it's more of a gritty you can get in more spots, but if you wanna, like, be famous, you would go to LA. And I guess it's and now, Texas is a big scene is kind of propping up in Austin. A lot of when Rogan moved to Austin, a lot of his LA buddies followed him out there, and now,
um,
of course, he opened the Comedy Mothership, so that's gonna be a big scene too, but like Boston was always a decent scene, but now I think there probably is more energy or like around Texas, like certainly like Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, I
yeah,
think is growing.
yeah, I've noticed that because that's why I moved down here originally, is just to try to get into acting, specifically voiceover. Because I'd be damned if I live in LA. I
Mhm.
don't know if I could even handle that sort of thing. And then being like 2 hours my home state, Illinois, like from outside of Chicago. It was like, yeah, I visited up there, but I don't really would want to go up there all the time, sort of thing. But it's like what you were saying, like you got, New York, LA, Chicago, and now like what you're saying, it seems like Texas is really starting to become the
Oh
the
yeah.
big area sort of thing. Well, I guess there's Atlanta too, but that's more like I think movie studios though.
Yeah, true.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So with like your stand up and like have you kind of figured out kind of like how to feel the crowd now and like feel their energy to where if you're doing material and you aren't necessarily like hitting the shots and stuff, do you kind of like have backup material that you can kind of like
Yeah, you
switch?
always know, like, before and after. Ideally, before and after a risky joke, you'd have something that you know will land. But, yeah, you definitely know, like, what's your kind of in your stable of jokes that always land, and then the new ones I kind of either come up with or figure out what I'm gonna do, like, sometimes while the show is happening or, like, right before. There's always, like, at least 30-40% that I don't know what I'm gonna say or what's gonna come out. So, yeah, it's you have to really listen to what they're laughing at, what they're not laughing at, and you have to acknowledge when a joke bombs, because if you don't acknowledge when one joke bombs, that's how you get into, like, your whole set bombing,
Mm.
and, you gotta not acknowledge it, move on, like, maybe you spend some time trying to figure out, like, what they liked or didn't like or what's going on. Yeah, did you just piss everybody off? Did you go into a topic that's really something they don't think you should joke about? Like, it really depends, like, what kind of risk you wanna take and then what your, like, plan is for cleaning up after.
So you
But,
would
yeah, it's just like listening. You have to really listen.
So, I guess what I think I kind of asked a while ago about like with your material and stuff like that, and kind of like you say you go to Twitter and stuff like that. Do you kind of like, is there like a format of where you kind of try to like this topic will like be good to start off with, and then, oh, this one would be good to like kind of flow into that? Like, do you kind of like have a chart sort of thing?
Kind
Like
of, yeah, like, I'll
at
have a
least
little,
for
like,
you?
crib sheet that I'll sort of, like, write one word down for, like, each idea. And then, like, I'll have that, like, in my pocket if I'm like, "Okay, you lose your place," or
Mhm.
yeah.
Is it always all right to have, like, your notebook on the side? Do people
Not
still
a whole
do
notebook,
not a
like,
full notebook? Do people
ideally
not
nothing, but if you have, like, a
dealing
couple
enough?
of new things written down, like, to the side, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but,
I guess what are the big, like, no-nos of, like, stand-up sort of things? Are there, like, some golden rules where it's like,
moving the
don't have
mic stand, taking the mic stand away when you get on stage is that's just, like, a professionalism move. What are the golden rules? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, don't bail early. Don't do, like, less than the time that you've promised. But that's just that seems to kinda like more like just a rookie mistake. Yeah.
mm.
Other than that, I don't really think there's any other rules.
With your improv sort of thing too, like you said, when you're like bombing and stuff and you kind of can just like be prepared, like how much, like, has there been a time where it's like you just nothing is really landing and it's just like you just had to improv, like just
Oh, for
almost
sure,
like
yeah, there
the
are
whole
times where
show?
you just, like, blank out completely, or you're not in the right mood, or something happened, like, before the show, or you're having a bad week, or I mean, there's so many other factors that go into it, and you have to try to, like, put that aside and be really in the present moment and, like, give yourself over, like, fully to the crowd, and just your job is to make them have a good time, so you kinda have to, like, get over whatever's bothering you that day or something.
Is it always easier to like kind of, because I know, well, like one of the tricks like for with like doing like speech team or something like that is you can kind of find someone to like kind of focus in on, and if you're like getting a good vibe from them or sort of thing, you kind of like talk to them sort of
Yeah,
thing?
have, like,
Is that
anchor points in the crowd
anchor
with
points
something
sort of
yeah,
thing?
something that you, like, someone's name or their job, like, that's what's good about doing crowd work either as a host or as a headliner, you're, like, combing information, you're being like, "Okay, who does what? What's the relationship going on? We have old people, new people, oh god, there's a kid in the crowd, there's a 14-year-old right there, okay, that's gonna possibly affect you or not affect your set, depending on who you are."
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we'll go ahead and we'll kind of wrap up the show here. Is there anything you want to plug, Chrissy? I thank you so much for
Ooh,
coming by and
thank you for having me.
sharing the
Yeah,
comedy life.
this Thursday, I'm at the Bridgeport Stress Factory, that's in Connecticut. This Saturday, I'm at the Grizzly Pear Midtown in Manhattan. I got Staten Island April 7th, Jersey April 8th. I'm gonna be in Vegas April 27th. Dallas, the beginning of May 5th and 6th, I'll be at Hyenas in Dallas. And then Anime Matsuri in August. I'll be at that convention with the Simcast girls. And I'll be headlining in Houston at the Secret Group Friday, August 11th.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll definitely try to
Sweet.
catch out one of the Dallas shows for sure. And I'll also probably head over to Anime Matsuri as well. So I look forward to
Nice.
seeing you there. So thank you again, Chrissy, for taking the time to just get to know you a little bit more, learn about comedy and all the ups and downs that it can take. But it sounds like you're just kicking ass and stuff. So I'm really, really glad for you. And I hope everything just continues to go.
Oh, thanks, Greg.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you to everyone who checked out the show. All of Chrissy's information is in the description, both on YouTube and Rumble. And you can also like and subscribe to my show as well. And yeah, hopefully YouTube will stop being assholes, sort of thing.
One day.
One day, one day.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Yep.
Everyone, subscribe
See
to
you again.
Greg.
Thanks a lot, Chrissy. Really appreciate it. Nice meeting you. Good luck on your
Nice meeting
endeavors.
you too.
Yep.
Thanks.